Hi, good morning. This is Dr. Mike, and this is from my perspective for week number 3. Hard to believe we're already in week 3 or 5. Time seems to pass so quickly. But this week we're really discussing some great history that I hope you'll get involved with, and we'll spend some time reading your materials and then writing about that. You probably don't realize this, but first of all, a discussion board is not a place where you just knock your brain out of gear and write about whatever you want to. You're supposed to be writing from the richness and the depth of the materials that you're covering, and that's a place where you show off what you've learned and what you're studying. It's not something that you just let hand and go through and miss the point. And so I want to just remind you of that as you're writing. This is a place where you show off your skills in reading and analyzing and thinking about history. And so as you do that this week, we're going to be talking about the growth and the spread of Christianity and Islam throughout the world after 600, when Islam was born and Christianity beforehand. And I want to just spend a little bit of time just giving you a little bit of perspective on that. A lot of things here that maybe you don't gain as you go through your textbook. Christianity by 300 had grown tremendously and had spread, and was one of the reasons that the Roman Empire is going to fall. Actually, I would argue that probably the Roman Empire never fell. It transformed itself in from being a political entity to being a religious political entity, because you find so many of the aspects of the Roman Empire held over in the Roman Catholic Church. And so about 400, 500, there is this transition. 397, Theodosius makes Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. And of course, within 100 years, Rome falls. And the old Romans look at that as a sign and said, for hundreds of years, Rome survived on our multiple religions, and now we change religions and we go to this one religion, and within 100 years we're fallen. You have read, no doubt, many of the accounts of the persecutions of the early church, not only in the Bible but in Fox's Book of Martyrs and others. You realize that Rome did not have a problem with adding Christianity to its pantheon of gods. As long as Christianity could be another god, like the worship of Zeus or Mars or any of the others, there was not a big deal about that. Most people don't have a problem with Jesus as a God among gods, but it's that exclusivity that was demanded, that thou shalt have no other gods before me, that Jesus had to be the only God, that caused the ruckus in the early church and with the Roman Empire. But Theodosius declares the religion. One of the interesting things about Roman Catholicism, or the Roman Church at that time, it wasn't really Catholicism as we know it today, but the church uh, added certain things to the Christian worship to make it more palatable for the pagans to come to church. For instance, they set their holy days as the same as the pagan holy days. October the 31st, that we know is Halloween, was All Saints Eve, which was a church holiday, but it was also a pagan holiday, and so they set that as a church on the church calendar. The Christmas celebration in December was also a pagan holiday. If you know anything about the Middle East, you realize there were not shepherds in the fields in December watching their flocks, as the Bible says they were at the birth of Christ. And we probably are agreed that the birth of Christ was sometime in the spring months and not in December, but they moved the celebration in the church to December to coincide to get these pagan Romans to church. They add things like the mass and the vestments and all those kind of things to that. And that's going to only grow, because one of the other interesting things is that within the fall of Rome, within 200 years, literacy goes away. And so there's nobody reading. And of course, you realize, and please keep this in mind because it's of great importance historically, their books are hand copied all the way up until 1500, when Gutenberg develops the movable type. We take the printing press from the Chinese and we use it, but he invents movable type so that now we can mass produce written copy. But before that, everything, including what Bibles there were, were hand copied. There were not many Bibles. Bibles were scarce. Many priests did not know how to read. You're going to be talking about Charlemagne in 800, when Charlemagne starts the Carolingian revival, in which he instructs the school to start at his palace, where priests are taught to read the Bible. So what Bibles there were, at least they're being used. So Bible, you've got to realize in the Catholic Church, the Bible doesn't maintain the same status as it does to Protestants who almost worship the Bible. But salvation was in the church. You were baptized into the church. You retain the graces of salvation in the church. You're buried in the church. You're married in the church. All those things were a part of that process, and salvation was there. With the Protestant Reformation, 1500s, it's going to become, the Bible is going to take on this new importance. And moving forward, we get an English copy of the Bible finally, with Tyndale and some others. And so there's a great difference there that we don't often think about. But the Roman Church develops all of these different kinds of things to teach religion to an increasingly illiterate society, like stained glass windows and the priest's vestments, the mass, all those things that go on in a Catholic ceremony were designed to teach religion to those that were illiterate. And so that's going to continue on, and they'll find their own again in the New World when they begin to teach Native Americans, because it will be the Catholics who have the upper hand at reaching or evangelizing Native Americans, because their religion has visual aspects to it. One of the old Cherokee chiefs said that, you Protestants are so boring. You don't even have a cross on the wall in your church. There's nothing to look at. You get up and preach to us for 2 hours from a little book, and there's nothing to look at. At least in the Catholic Church, we're seeing priests moving and singing and stained glass windows and all those things. And so they found it to be quite interesting. So Rome basically falls, or if you will, transitions into the Roman Church. And so going forward, it's going to be, basically even the center of the church is going to move to North Africa, because Rome falls into disarray, under attack, and it's under attack increasingly from the Visigoths and the Vandals and the Huns, all these Germanic tribes, where Rome has expanded itself into Europe, doesn't have an army big enough to take care of that, and that's another reason for the fall. And they also include that they bring people into their armies that are not Romans and don't have the same idea as Romans do. Now, many of you mentioned the fact that we take a lot of things from the Romans. We do. The idea of the republic, which is what the United States government really is, a democratic republic, was a part of the first Rome, which was a republic before it became an empire under Julius Caesar and then Augustus and others. So basically, we do get our form of government from the Roman idea of the republic. And so a lot of other things, our laws, the 12 tables the Romans had, become a basis along with the 10 Commandments and the laws of Hammurabi of our legal system. So there's a lot of things there that we take from the Romans. At the same time, Rome is at its height in the East. The Han Empire in China is also growing. There's a really interesting an account of the Chinese who decide they want to see what's in the world. And so they build a fleet of 300 ships and they sail all the way to Rome, and they stop there and they investigate what's going on there, and almost laugh the Romans to scorn to think that people could rule themselves without an emperor who they worshipped and all those things. And there's actually written records on both sides, the Roman side, the Chinese side, of this meeting so early. They sail on to Africa. They don't see anything that impresses them. And so that basically China goes home and burns their ships and closes their doors and stays inside their own country for the next numbers of generations until we get into, up into the 1100s or so. The other major event that will happen is Islam, which Muhammad is born in 630. And remember that monotheistic religions, the three that we talk about are Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, are all from the same root. They all come from Abraham. We're all, as they call it, children of the book because we come from the Bible. And Islam descended through Ishmael. The Arab nations came through Ishmael, the son of Hagar, the handmaiden of Abraham. I remember that compromise that Sarah made because they wanted a son. She got tired of waiting on God. She gave Abraham her handmaiden, and so Ishmael was born. He is the father of the Arab nations, and through him, Muhammad will come into the world in 630. Of course, the Jewish religion came through Isaac, the son of promise, and with the 12 tribes and all those things through Sarah, the actual wife of Abraham, and Christianity descends through the the Jewish strand. So basically, Christianity and Islam and Judaism all come from the same central roots. But in 630, Muhammad is able to rally a few. This is not a major movement in his lifetime, but he rallies quite a few of the nomadic tribes of Islam, of the Muslim world or the Arab world, and starts to form this conquest of an army that's going to begin to attack the same areas around the Middle East and become quite a fighting machine overall. And they've developed their own. But the second generation, this is what's really interesting about religion in general. It seems that the second generation tends to take the core of the idea and expand it into more of a worldwide aspect. That's exactly what happened with Christianity, the second generation after Jesus under Paul, and the apostles will expand Christianity into a worldwide religion. And I say this very carefully, and I say this very respectfully, that Jesus did not become God overnight. That developed in the first century in their understanding. There's actually a book called When Did Jesus Become God? And so there is a development of this thought, and this is not something that just came up and was accepted and swallowed and went on. But in these early church years, especially after Rome falls and it shifts to North Africa, there is tremendous doctrinal debate and development that goes on. Doctrine did not fall as a book out of heaven with the King James Bible, as some people think it did. Doctrine developed over time and still develops. It constantly changes, and I can show you instances in history where that has happened. Islam is going to develop much more along the lines of violence and war. They write the Quran, or Muhammad writes the Quran. The Quran is a very interesting book. I encourage you to read it sometimes. It does mention Jesus as a son of God, but not the last. Muhammad is the last and the greatest prophet. Jesus was a prophet, but Muhammad was the last and the greatest, and Allah is God. And Muhammad is supposedly goes to Jerusalem, and he ascends to heaven to talk to Allah and comes back. If you ever go to the beautiful mosque that's on the Temple Mount, inside that Muslim mosque is the stone supposedly from which Abraham offered Isaac, except in the Muslim world he was offering Ishmael. It is the same stone that the Old Testament sacrifices were upon. It's also part of the same mountain that Mount Moriah is upon, where Jesus was offered on the cross. So basically, the symbolism and these kind of things all kind of fit together in this discussion. So this week in your paper that you're writing and researching, let me just say some things in closing about that. Please make sure this paper is academic in quality and stay away from personal opinions. This is not a place where you just kind of chat and do those kind of things. You are actually researching your subject, you're making points, you're writing. So you should have an introduction, a body, and a close, just like you do any other paper. And you should follow the proper way of citing your resources. You should be sure they're academic resources. And please listen to me on this. Wikipedia is not an academic resource, because anyone can go on Wikipedia and change the details of the information. You want, if you're going to use a website, be sure it has an edu ending to it or an org. Look at the person doing the writing. What are their credentials? And more often than not, if they are a college professor it's well written, it's been peer reviewed. Those kind of things are important, that you're getting the best research, because part of the benefit of this class is that you learn how to do proper research, and you cite it properly, and you write properly. And so I want you to be very careful about that. If you haven't done it before, it's a great place to learn. I'm here to help you with that. I'm not here to chastise you for not knowing how to do that. If you don't know and you need help, you need to ask. And I'm more than happy to help you with that. You have great writing resources with the school, but you need to be very selective. That's a part of the history process. As we said in the beginning, every book has a perspective, every book has a bias. You need to learn to be discriminate about who you include in your writing. And so as you pick sources, be sure you pick some that are equitable, and be sure that they are cited correctly in the paper and at the end. It's a two-part process. You use an in-text citation in the paper, and then you put the full citation on the reference page. This week, you are writing about one of three great movements in this period, either the Byzantine Empire and why it lasted so long, as opposed to the Roman or Greek or others. The other you're writing on is Charlemagne, the great king, who is first made king of the Holy Roman Empire. He is the one who starts the Carolingian Renaissance in 800, in which we start the turn from the Dark Ages back toward literacy, back toward which the West has abandoned with the fall of Rome. All literacy goes dark. There's very few people reading or writing. You got the Venerable Bede, this Catholic monk who is on the way in England on the front lines of the boundary between Roman Empire and the infidels. And he writes a little bit. There's not a lot going on until after 800, when Charlemagne begins this turn back towards literacy. He manages to unite Europe with the Franks and begin what we know as the Western civilization and empire. And that's why his writing is so, or writing about him is so important to this course. The other third choice is the Battle of Tours that takes place in southern France, in which the Muslim hordes is the term often used. These battle, remember, as I said, that they are a warring group of people that is taking over the world by storm, and they're about to take Europe over. And this battle is so important because Charles Martel, who leads that battle, will turn back the Muslims from taking Europe. And this battle is so important because had it not been for him winning this battle, we would all be in a different place today than we are. We would be probably more likely to be Muslim, speaking Arabic and not speaking English. Probably never would have happened. There would have been no Reformation. There would have been no English speaking world. There would have been no America, probably, or a very different America. So we can only speculate. But this battle becomes one of the most important in history. And so as you write about these things, let me encourage you that when you're writing about a great subject, and these are great subjects, these are not subjects of just, oh, I'll go and get a book and copy down something out of the book and let it go at that. No, these are subjects you're researching and learning. And when you are writing about a great subject, it is incumbent upon you to do a great job. Don't do a sorry job on a great subject because you disrespect the history. As Christians, we're called to be our very best. You want to be the very best researcher. You want to be the very best writer. You want to be the very best speaker. Anything less than that is a dishonor to the Savior that we serve. Do the very best. He gave his best for you. Why not do your best for him? Everything you approach, every class you approach, you do it as unto him, realizing that he gave his best. And that's what I want to see from these papers and from your discussion boards. I want to see you rise to the top and be the very best you can be, because you realize it is incumbent upon us as a Christian. If Christ did his best for us, then how could we do any less for him? I hope that's encouraging and not discouraging. I'm not here to discourage you. I'm here to make you a better student, a better historian, a better Christian, if you will. as we serve Christ together. But this is some great history, and please don't miss the fact that there's some great things to be learned this week. I look forward to your discussions. I hope to join those, and I hope you will join them with good faith, having read the materials. We have several great chapters this week. Read the materials, listen to this tape, get some ideas, and then write something with great perspective. Thank you.